We got Travis Flesher here. Many people don't know this, but the reason this studio exists happens to be you.
Oh, wow, cool.
So you showed me your studio facility a long time ago, and I walked away from it being like, man, that's pretty genius. And eventually, an opportunity came up to build this place out.
Yeah.
And it probably never would have happened had it not been for you creating and producing tons of podcasts in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's not something that I initially like was trying to do, but it just kind of happened through solving a bunch of our own problems that cascaded into, well, it seems obvious that we need to develop a business model around podcasting because there's really nothing that existed before. I mean, I'm sure people had podcast studios, but it was mostly like, audio production studios that would like have a couple microphones set up for podcasting, or you're looking at a video production studio or a creative space that just had like a couch, and podcasting wasn't really like advertised as heavily. When I opened up my studio Sticky Paws with John, he needed a place to record his shows, and he said, well, I met him at a studio I was like interning at initially, and he's like had 3 shows there, and he was paying, I don't know, let's just say $4,000 in costs of doing the shows. He's like, for this, I can go rent a place and then just do my shows out of there. He was going to do that without me. He had that idea already. Then
How did you meet?
Through the studio. So like I was producing his podcast, the Action Junkies podcast, out of Show Creator Studios. So they had like a couple of setups, and they were using this like iPad and iPhone technology to like switch cameras pretty affordably. And, I learned a lot from that. And I basically with their permission, I spearheaded that kind of like division. And I was like a really great asset, I guess.
Learning from being in a place that's doing it.
Yeah, well, no, they weren't doing it. I was definitely developing it for them. Like, so we were learning together, I guess. So I came from, like, I've been podcasting since I was 16. And then I've been listening to podcasts since YouTube existed. And I loved podcasts. And video podcasting was not really heard of. Audio podcasting obviously been around for a while, but video podcasting on YouTube in the early days with the Rooster Teeth podcast, which was one of the earliest internet companies to create online content. When you had to click the download button to watch it. And
wow.
Then
We're pre-RSS.
Yeah, no, not even RSS, pre-YouTube. Before there was like, they created video content for the internet before you could, like, there was servers that could support massive downloads or streaming at all. And then they had a podcast that I liked because they used all of their team that they made all the content at that place was on the podcast. So it was really interesting to see how those people like got together, created something awesome, something like Rooster Teeth. Anyway, so I was really enamored by that since I was a really young kid. I've been making videos since I was 8 too. So when it came to this internship place, they pretty much gave me the permission and money, I guess I was getting paid to do this stuff, and I just like was really good at it. But there were some issues there, like the audio was like bad because like the cables were old, the technology was busted. They were piecing it together, and I respect them immensely. I don't know if they feel the same way about me, about how I departed, but I basically gave them a 4-month notice.
4 months?
Yeah.
That's pretty generous.
Their entire business was relying on me. I said in 4 months at the end of the year, I think it was COVID year 2020, I said, I'm going to leave, and I just want to pursue filmmaking. I graduated in UNLV for film. And then they didn't believe me, I guess, and they never trained anyone else. They didn't hire anyone else. I was expecting them to kind of do that work. But then came the day that I left, and a month prior, I was approached by John to like, hey, I'm doing this studio thing. I heard you're leaving Show Creators. Like, would you be willing to do this? And I was like, honestly, I still want to do film. Like, podcasting is not my jam. Like, live streaming is fun, but I don't want to do it professionally. And I was like, and he's like, what's the dollar amount? And I'm like, there really isn't a dollar amount because I'm not doing this I'm not going into filmmaking for money, obviously, because no one makes money in film unless you're doing it long enough and you're popular. So I said, give me a piece of the company, and obviously a paycheck to make it worth showing up, and then I'm there. And he's like, done. So that's kind of started my entrepreneur kind of like world in podcasting. But like I didn't have any, all only knowledge I had in podcasting was what he was used to. So since he was used to a certain aesthetic, brand, identity, workflow at the other place, I basically optimized what I was building over there, but with a brand new budget. Like I could build an Amazon shopping list and say, I need everything on this to make this work 100% of the time. There were some issues with the workflow prior where there was like, we lost episodes. There was episodes with no audio. There was a crackling in the audio. It's like things that are completely avoidable with good technology, but it didn't happen. So I had the opportunity to build, which it was called Sunset Studios at first, and I hated that name. So I demanded they change it. And I had pretty much as much budget as I needed to accomplish the goal. I didn't need a lot. Actually, we built our first studio for $12,000. Cameras, lighting, everything, 100% of everything for the first Studio B is what we started with.
Where did the name Sticky Paws come from?
Sticky Paws, yeah, no, I actually hated the name at first. I hated Sunset Studios because it was so generic and it had no personality. And I wanted to replicate the Rooster Teeth kind of vibe in terms of like the type of content that was coming out of the studio and like how people liked each other, and there was a creative environment. People can just show up, have a good time, and feel like they're creatively, free. Anyway, so Sunset Studios did not, pass the vibe check. So I was like, we were behind the UFC building, so John wanted a lot of UFC fighters to come in, so we were thinking something a bit more hardcore, like Ultimate Podcast Studio or Iron Fist Media or something. And honestly, all the names sucked, and I'm glad we didn't go with any of those. Then John was like, why don't we call it Sticky Paws Studios? How funny would it be if we called it Sticky Paws? I was like, that's a dumb name. I hate that name. He's like, why? It's like, it's unique. I'm like, yeah, but it's dumb. Like, that sounds like we're a dog grooming facility. Like, Sticky Paws Studios? Like, and fast forward a few years, there'd be people showing up at our door, like, with their dog. Like, hey, can I get my dog groomed? No, you can't. We're a podcast studio. Anyways, but, and then I hated the name so much, but all of our teammates were like, yeah, I love the name. And it was based off of John's cat, Mocha, who has sticky paws. Like every time every time she steps on like fabric, it just kind of sticks, I guess. Okay. Oh, I'm like, okay, cool. So if this is the name I'm stuck with, then I'm gonna design the logo to make it not look cute. And that's where Sticky Paws, the logo, came from, where it's like, it's with a font type that's really edgy and like, leaning in more to like the tiger of the paws, I guess. And then it has like a strike through it, which became like the emblem of the studio, which was like the short form version of the logo.
Going from show creators to Sticky Paws, and something I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect you have built many a studio outside of even these, or recording environments.
Sure.
Let's say, what were the big technological or equipment differences that you kind of changed as you went along, being like, I shouldn't have gone this route, and then here's the big upgrade, here's the next big upgrade?
Right. That's a good question, because like the studios I built at Show Creators, like that's what I learned mostly at Show Creators is set building, actually, is everything about running a show, not a podcast show, just a show, like an event, because they did a lot of that stuff there. So I was kind of just thrown into the gauntlet of just like piecing environments together, like this room, like ultimately it's like a nice sound treated room. What makes it good is all these LED screens and also like this cork, but you can get similar vibes fairly affordable. And what you're doing is just building depth and like vibe, right? And it could be made out of the cheapest material, like even movies that are AAA are made out of styrofoam and just painted well, or have like those nice details. So taking that mentality into building studios in terms of the differences is mostly it's all aesthetic. Like the equipment changes only because new equipment and new like ATEM Mini comes out. Like when I started podcasting, video podcasting, ATEM Mini didn't exist. So like the only other option was this huge ATEM Pro board that could do 1080p, but you needed a ton of infrastructure, and you still do. But now those companies are realizing there's like this huge section called prosumer, which is like between a consumer and a professional. And that's kind of where all this technology is going. So yeah, technology has adjusted dramatically since 2020, and leaning more into the streamer world, which then kind of crosses over into the podcasting world. So the technology, when I first started, like how I'd approach it is like if it generates light, then it could be used, right? So that's like we used a lot of like on Amazon, you can look up like 60-watt outdoor lights that are RGB. Like those came in clutch for version 1 of Sticky Paws, because I bought 8 of those and lit the entire studio, the entire environment with that. But then I would use newer and like NEEWER panels for like the key lights. Like you guys in here actually have substantial budget using Aperture. That's awesome. But I used just those square panels, and it
They
didn't even,
work
I
great.
didn't even add any light modifiers like silks or scrims to it. I just blasted it. I had the principles of lighting techniques from UNLV Film. Like I'm a cinematographer, born and bred, I guess. So it was really easy to light an environment like this.
It's interesting hearing about the cinematography thing. Both when you're talking about like sets, you're just like, it's styrofoam, man. It's
Yeah.
like anything. It's like that really impacted your world, and in subsequent ways, you've impacted so many others' world by like these lessons that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how. I guess because I was in my own bubble and I wasn't competing in Las Vegas. I wasn't really comparing myself to anyone. Like I was just generating ideas internally, and a lot of people probably generated their own ideas internally. They just kind of maybe came to the same conclusion because they asked the same questions, or they saw us online or saw us, or they came by. When people come by the studio like yourself, I have no problem telling everyone exactly the workflow. Because what I believe about this is like clients come to a podcast studio for not only the service, but it's the vibe, right? They would just hire a videographer and their own team if they wanted to just do everything like above board on their terms. But if they're going to a studio, they expect a vibe. They expect an experience. Something I've learned over the course of running Sticky Paws in my other studios as well is that's what keeps a client, and that and delivery. But it's really interesting. I lost my train of thought.
I come from the world of magic. And I remember it's very secretive, obviously, right? And I remember sitting down with this guy. His name's Apollo Robbins. He's like one of the best pickpockets in the world. And I started asking him like questions. We were just having a conversation. And he started telling me everything. Here's how I do this. Here's how I do that. Here's how I do this. And I remember being like, that's crazy. And then I met another person in the entertainment field that was doing murder mysteries. And he's like, here's my entire client sheet. You should reach out to these people. It's likely that they would be the person that would hire you.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me at a certain point that people keep secrets when they're really terrified that they're not good enough and can be easily replaced.
Right.
The ones that just go, here's everything, here's the playbook, they're not intimidated at all. Like they actually have something real that they're delivering, and they're like, if you can clone it, knock yourself out, but it's not that easy.
Right.
So I've always, anybody who goes, here, I'm an open book,
Yeah.
I'm like, they're dangerous. Like those are the guys that really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think confidence is like speaks more numbers to like the confidence speaks more numbers about like what they intend to achieve over time, and then competence you can just see, right? So if someone's giving you advice, giving their playbook, but they suck, maybe don't listen to them, and they're just embodying what that person would be, like kind of like a symptom. Like I wished when I was starting Sticky Paws I had as much competition as that there is in the city, because I could ask questions. I had nobody to ask questions to. I had people coming from the broadcast world who tried to broadcast mansplain their workflows to me, and I'm like, no, I'm not spending $100,000 on this equipment. I don't need it. I try to go to my filmmaking mentors, and they're like telling me I need ARRI Alexas and shoot in 8K, and I need a robust editing workflow. I'm like, stop. Like, that's not what I need. And the audio people, completely useless, because I would put this microphone, a Shure SM7B, and they're like, where's your cloud lifter? What's the EQ? I'm like, again, nobody gives a fuck about the mids and the tones. Like, ultimately, like, you can spend a lot of time refining the audio, and it can sound really good, but the bar, respectfully, for podcasts is really low. And if I'm sitting here trying to make a studio with margins that are or with overhead that is ever climbing, and I'm trying to like be efficient as possible, like that's just not going to cut it. So I had to solve my own solutions, find the Venn diagram crossover of all of these practices, and create a new industry or a new concept of capturing like video. That's not a video production studio. That's not an audio studio. That's not film or broadcast. It's just its own unique principle. And a lot of people, even in our city, make those mistakes early on. They come from a certain world, they bring their world with them, and then they realize that they can't sustain a business that way. Partly because they either have way too much overhead, or they have too high of expectations, or they're not looking at what the client actually wants from a production like this. They're just looking at from an egotistical perspective, like, I want to use the best equipment, or I saw this was coming out. Oh, ATEM just released a new board. If I don't buy that board, then I'm not going to have the best podcast studio. And that's just not true at all. That's from experience, because we don't use any of the equipment in this room is not used in any of our studios, which is proven that you don't need to have the most the most expensive stuff. Just you need to implement it strategically.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of studios for TV that are millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and they're getting absolutely decimated by podcasters that are getting way more views
Yeah, definitely.
with way less budget.
I mean, John said, like, when we started our podcast studio, Sticky Paws, he did say, in 10 years, podcasting is going to replace news broadcasts, or it's going to replace the post show of an ESPN thing. It's just going to be a podcast. If you look at them, if you look at the format, it's really just a podcast. I mean, that is all it is. So podcasting is just like a more of a renegade perspective. Like, people spend more money because they think then it's more important. That's not true either. And yeah, I can go into that more into detail about like the type of clients or the type of podcasters that are starting now and how their perspectives are adjusted.
It almost seems like if you have a background in comedy or a background in broadcasting, that has a bigger benefit to you than having like the best lens, the best camera, the best lights.
Oh yeah, hands down. You just got to be entertaining. I mean, you're asking people for over an hour of their time out of their probably not busy, but they think it's busy day, right? So, you have the short form algorithms, which take super high dopamine hits and then makes you doom scroll for hours. And then you have long form content that equally needs to supply that dopamine over time. And if it's just a boring guest or a boring topic or a boring host, you're just not going to retain. There's a lot of shows.
So you're saying I'm doomed.
No, I'm saying you have a great foundation because you come from an entertainment background,
Oh, okay.
actually.
All right.
So you can maintain a conversation. You can actually listen to what someone's saying and then ask follow-up questions. Because when someone's watching this video right now, they're having their own questions. They're like, oh man, he mentioned this. I hope the host asked this. The host just completely ignored it and went to the next bullet point. God damn, I hate this host. Unsubscribe or just never follow it again. And then those types of shows, ironically, have just as much merit on short form because then you can cut the context out. As long as I do something wacky in front of the camera for less than a minute, then it could be popular. And there's a lot of podcasts that get no views or listens on those platforms, but they hit really hard on the short form algorithms.
So outside of short form, which is definitely like a powerful marketing strategy right now because the algorithms are pushing that. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but YouTube, their landing page is slowly getting overrun by short form rather than long form.
Yeah.
So they're pushing it hard.
Yeah, definitely.
And then everything that's in your phone is all going to be short form pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you see as really strong or effective strategies for those new podcasters that didn't have like a built-in audience that they're bringing over? Like how does somebody who's starting off, what's the best way for them to at least get eyes on their show?
Short form.
Short form. We're back to it.
Yep. So like no one will give you go up to a stranger and ask them, hey, you want to have coffee with me and not like a woman or trying to date them. Just like ask them to just waste an hour of their time. They're going to say no. They're going to say fuck off. Like that is essentially what you're doing, creating a self-righteous podcast in the vacuum of podcasts. Like unless you have like a goal directive or you're bringing an audience from somewhere else, no one's going to give a shit about your podcast at all. Hands down, period. Unless you get somebody from a relevant audience and you get them as a guest or as a co-host and there's some built-in social media, you're gathering audience from other places, no one's going to care about your full-length podcast, at least in the beginning. The short form, because to get to the best part of a Joe Rogan podcast, for example, since everyone knows that show, you might have to wait 10 minutes, right? But I know I like Joe Rogan, so I'm going to sit through that 10 minutes before I get to it, right? Or there might never be a good moment, but I'm just a fan of Joe Rogan, I guess. His questions, his intrigue, I like the way he thinks or whatever. So you can't expect any audience for a full-length podcast to have that for you unless you're bringing it from somewhere else. So if you don't have that, like you said, then short form is the only thing. Then you have to create good content. Like that is not unexcusable, right? You could be famous and create bad content, but then you're just going to have the 1,000 people that actually are like fanboys and don't care what you produce. But then you're never going to reach that level of fame that like connects with a wider audience or even a niche. So then the short form gives you an opportunity to like do the long form. You have these moments where it's like up and down. Maybe you suck at the intro because it's your first episode. Maybe the outro is a little bumpy. Maybe you stumble on your words. You ask terrible questions. But then you cut out just the best moments out of every show. Let's say you cut 7 moments out of that 1-hour show. Then every week you have a clip coming out a day. And some of those clips are going to do well. Some of those clips are not going to do well. And that gives you an instant feedback about what parts of your full-length podcast is actually the most entertaining. And then you have a clip coming out every single day. The algorithm favors people who post more. I think on Instagram, it's 1 to 3 times a day is what they expect, right?
It's wild.
So it is wild. But, I mean, like, even if you post a clip a day from your podcast and you record weekly or you bank them and record them, but, especially in the beginning, I recommend recording and releasing them immediately. Partly because then if you do 10 episodes with no feedback, then you're going to have 10 first episode style episodes. And that doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people, like budgets, scheduling. Like if you're at a studio like ours, then they got to pay for the time, so they might not be conducive. But
so it all kind of depends on what resource that person has.
right. I mean, you could do it. Like you can absolutely do a podcast in your bedroom and with no video. Just good luck trying to put it online because then no one's going to watch an image. So unless you have like an animation friend, an animator friend, or you're really good at editing B-roll, like kind of like throwing like images on the screen that are relevant to what you're talking about and create it. But then you're an editor, right? You're not a podcaster. You're kind of just getting into a different world.
Should podcasters be editors just so they, even if they're not editing, so that they can speak to editors?
I mean, if you're asking me if somebody coming from nowhere, then yes, they have to be, right? Unless they have friends that are also just as bullish and awesome as they are to like help them out doing a project. The problem is like so many people in podcasting have such big egos that they're either want to control everything or they won't let anyone, or everyone who's contributing wants to control everything. So like the editor wants extra control and the podcaster, host, the producer, the talent booker or whatever. And that could be all the same person, but it's kind of like it's a weird world. And the good podcasts are obvious because everyone's having a good time. Oftentimes you just create the content and you don't go meta where you go, oh, this is a podcast that it's aware of itself. You kind of have to just create content in a vacuum, and then it will resonate with a niche, whether it's a subreddit, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook. It's going to hit somewhere. And if it hits nowhere and you do it for a very long time, then it's just a hobby. And you're just doing it because you love it. And if you hate doing it, then stop podcasting. There's millions of podcasts that are dead for that exact reason. And it's okay to stop and just kind of hit the drawing board and start again.
Why does it have such a terrible drop-off rate? Like most people don't record, or most people don't put out more than 20 episodes, which is insane to me that you invest that much time and then be like, we're done.
Right. I think it's partly because companies like prosumer companies like Elgato and all these like slower end streaming gear companies have spent a lot of money convincing people that they could be the next Twitch streamer, that they could be the next podcaster. Buy my equipment, and my equipment makes you a podcaster. So in the era of 2020, 2019, around that time, like Elgato went really heavy on their line of equipment to focus purely on streamers. And that's a great market but the streamers that are established aren't buying new equipment. Like unless they're not buying it, they're given the equipment by Elgato so that their audience buys the equipment. But that's why then a lot of clients, early clients of Sticky Paws would be like, hey, I bought a couple microphones, I bought all this stuff. I'm like, great, cool, sell it. And now start a membership because like, you're not gonna, like, I can teach you, I can, do tech support over the phone as much as you want, but the moment you hit a problem, you're going to call me anyway. So just come here and pay the money and have someone else do it. So you can focus on why people will like your show, which is the content, not the technical setup at all.
So you've mentioned ego a couple of times, that a lot of people are coming into this with ego, and I certainly agree. It's a really hard one because for a lot of my clients, I'm like, what are your goals? And in the back of my head, I'm like, I wonder if this is an ego play, that's not the goal that they're going to mention. A lot of times it's they're wanting to educate, they're wanting to sell a product, whatever the case may be. But you've had to really put ego aside, I would assume, because you're behind the scenes producing all of this content.
Definitely.
Is that hard?
That's given me an ego, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've started with no ego, and I realized that I was building an ego because I just when you are finally feel like you understand something and the most of your peers don't, it kind of just naturally gives you an ego. It's like, well, like you invited me here today. Oh. You gave me an ego. Appreciate that.
Oh, sure.
Right. So like,
have a little bump.
Yeah. Thank you. some nice ego drugs.
Some dopamine there.
But yeah, like I've remained extremely humble because I have to. And it was easy in the beginning because I didn't have any personal worth at all. Like I was coming fresh out of film school. I just came from Show Creators, which basically shunned me for leaving and starting another studio. So I was just kind of like, the only thing I needed was to prove to myself that I could do the job. And what I normally do is I hyper focus. This is probably like a mental disorder, but I hyper focus on the goal and shut everything out. Like I've lost girlfriends because of Sticky Paws. I've dumped them for my work. Like
really?
Yeah. Like I've gone through an extreme personal change from college to now to make me more optimized to be better because I hate Not that I hate failing. I hate knowing I didn't give my 100% and then failing. That's worse.
But you
And-
decided I'm not going to give my 100% to the relationship. I'm going to give my 100% to the job.
Well, I made that choice because I wanted a low maintenance relationship, and the people I were dating was not giving me a low maintenance relationship.
Got it.
I was spending 12 to 17-hour days at work, and if all I'm worried about is somebody's at home waiting for me, like that affects my job. And going to my relationships, I've always like laid down a clear saying work is very important to me. It's not work because it's obviously not about the money. It's about what I'm doing. So if you don't support me or if you don't allow me to have this space, it's not going to work out.
What are your thoughts around censorship?
Ah.
Because podcast is pretty much the Wild West. However, the platforms are enjoying kind of demonetizing, shadow banning, whatever.
Yeah.
And there are times when I'm in a production booth back there listening to somebody say something and I'm like, I'm not allowed to talk right now, but wow, I definitely disagree with that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I'm sure you've run into this.
Yeah, I think with anything you put on the internet, you have to run through a filter of consequences, right? Especially if like I'm giving you my words and you could take this and do whatever you want with it, right? So knowing that, like I'm responsible for that. I could probably reach out to you and be like, hey, can we cut out that part where I said, XYZ? But I believe that censorship should only come from within, and it's amongst your people. Like it should never come from an external place. The internet in itself was built on the idea of no censorship, like from its conception, like forum boards, like discussions, like there's just ideas put on there. Yeah, it was hard to moderate it, which is why it kind of became like a libertarian like playground. But I think over time, these internet companies like YouTube, Google, like are now being responsible to a different person, like they're advertisers, and then those advertisers don't want to be aligned with a Nazi podcast, for example. So then that YouTube algorithm then demonetizes them, and then just so that YouTube doesn't get in trouble, or does not push it on the algorithm because they don't want Nazis to use their algorithm to find Nazi content. Like go build your own Nazi platform then, I guess. Which is what's great about the internet because you could do that. Like the whole dark net.
Wouldn't say
exists.
building a Nazi platform is what's great about the internet.
Well, okay, yeah. Thank you for clarifying. That's gonna be a clip that's gonna be like, Travis, you said this. I'm like, I know I didn't say that, but yeah, I have a habit of taking metaphors to the nth degree, so I could definitely be clipped out of context.
No.
But yeah, my idea on censorship is just that. Like I don't somebody at our studio. The line is if you're harming somebody that I love or care about, like, or you're being like, or it's like true hate crime, like racism, or like straight up like you're calling for violence. And like,
Has there been any episodes over I think thousands of episodes you've done? Has there been anywhere you've said like I don't want to put that out?
I never have that control because it's their content, but I could choose to stop recording.
Has that ever happened?
No, because we have a lot of overhead.
Okay.
So like there has been a few times where, I won't name the podcast, but they're very popular. They came into our studio and then they basically talked down to one of the female guests really, really bad. And I was in shock. I didn't know what to do because these people are very popular. The engineer was like super uncomfortable. I talked to John later and he's like, if I was there, I would have shut the whole thing down. I was like, damn, thanks for the confidence because I didn't know what I was able to do. This is the first time it's ever happened. And then we had a conversation and basically they're uninvited forever after that. But I don't think that content existing on the internet is a bad thing. I just think people should know that those hosts are terrible people and are very misogynistic.
So you're kind of a free speech absolutist with the caveat of as long as that speech gets seen, people can make their own judgment about how awful that is.
Yeah, I mean, I will. If someone's harming somebody in our studio, like I will stop them. Or if they're doing really illicit drugs in our studio, I've stopped them too.
Just moderately illicit's passable.
Yeah, I mean, like smoking weed, that's fine, but not in our studio. But I don't care. Honestly, like podcasting is great. Having a podcast studio has been the most eye-opening thing in my life. Like it is so crazy the range of people you meet at a studio like that because we're all in our little bubbles. Like when I was going to, I grew up in Vegas, in the northwest area of Las Vegas, and I didn't leave that zip code my entire life until I went to college. Then all of a sudden at college, there's like there's people from every country there. There's people from from perspectives that are extra liberal, extra conservative, all in one place. And I'm like, holy crap. And then even then, like the filmmaking community is still kind of like its own bubble. So then when I started doing podcasting and then starting having podcasts that are different than what I would, like do, and then those people would have wildly different guests. Like I was meeting wild people every single day, and it kind of tempered me to be like none of these people are harmful. They're just living their own life from their own perspective, and what they say, they might think the earth is flat, and they might really believe that, but like this is like a medium to discuss. Like this is it gives us a reason to like have this kind of like unintellectual debate, which is often, used to happen, at bars before, cell phones, the internet, everything. Like you just debate at a bar, no one to know the real answer. Everyone goes home saying, Jerry, he was wrong. I'm going to go to the library in 2 weeks and figure it out. But yeah, I love that conversation. We've had a Michael Sartain podcast. Like he's debated flat earthers in our studio, which is a fantastic, debate. And at the end, they were like, because he's a good person, like there's no bad blood, maybe from the flat earthers side, but seeing that over and over again, realize like in terms of the freedom of speech, like hoorah America kind of thing, like that is absolutely why podcasts is thriving. That's the only reason. It's not just like TikTok thrived because it put, nobodies in front of people. Like they created what we call the algorithm, like this kind of self-serving thing. And podcasting is thriving because people realize it's like, it's self-hosted, it's like, although you do rely on platforms like Spotify or Apple or YouTube to get it out there, and it's completely, and if people want to find the content, they can find it like on whether it's your own website or on Patreon, which has nothing, right? Or you can even get people put podcasts on Pornhub.
Do they?
Yeah, to avoid censorship.
That's hilarious.
Like there's this
I think it's censored in Texas.
Pornhub?
I think so.
Oh, good to know. I'll unbookmark that when I go over there.
There
But like when I
Get a proxy.
I think there was this like one person online. I don't know if it's real, but I saw it, and I'll say it as if it is real. This woman did a Minecraft Let's Play or a physics. It was just like the woman fully clothed physics lesson, and then she posted on YouTube. It had like 100 views, and posted on Pornhub had 1 million.
That's hilarious.
And it's just like, and Pornhub paid out more for the monetization. Like per 1,000 views, they got paid out more, so they're actually making more money putting content unrelated to porn on Pornhub, and and Pornhub doesn't care because like people are watching the ads, so that's all that matters.
It's almost saying, hey, you guys have taken your censorship on your platform too far.
Yeah.
I think I saw something with like 3D printed guns,
right,
where they did something similar to that, where they're just like, this can't go anywhere except this one website.
Sure.
And then it proliferates.
Yeah, I think teaching someone how to 3D print a gun is pretty cool, but also could
dubious.
It could like put in the wrong hands, like you're creating a nuclear bomb and then hoping only the good people use it. Like that's kind of rough.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that we had like the Anarchist Handbook. I don't know if you ever heard of
No.
these things. Oh, like there was these little. You'd open it up and it'd be like, "Here's how to make a bomb out of a soda bottle," and you're like, I'm sure kids hurt themselves with this stuff, but it was underground,
Definitely.
and now it's all dark web. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, the dark web is extremely accessible. I loved it. Like I explored the dark when I first found out about Bitcoin. I explored the dark web because it was like, what do you buy with Bitcoin? And the answer was nothing, except for things on the dark web. I'm like, okay, let me see what's on the dark web. And it's everything you expect, drugs. It's mostly just drugs, actually. And then it's like the type of people you meet. There are some heinous stuff on there, but it's just a different perspective. Again, it goes back to that's the true libertarian internet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but only the parts that have to be. So it's kind of a cesspool, because the stuff that is good, maybe within that philosophy, can be on the normal web.
Yeah.
So all you get is the bad stuff. Well,
sure.
I think like podcasting hasn't fallen into that. I think the differentiator for it in mainstream media is authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Like mainstream media, it's like everything's read off a prompter.
Sure.
While this is like organic, and they can tell.
Definitely. I think that's why the low quality state of podcasting is essential. Because there is nothing different functionally between us having conversation and then a debate held on a Fox News in their studio. Like just one has moving cameras and like an $8 million budget and whatever. But like which one would you trust for like truly unadulterated, kind of like opinions? Even if they're wrong, you're going to trust something like this because one, you're probably a busy man who has a lot of other things going on and can't bother censoring me. Or two, if it was really that bad, you just wouldn't publish it.
Yeah.
Right? There's not this necessity of there's going to be news at 11 and there's got to be content. There's not this 24-hour news cycle that needs to come out. And that's what's wholesome about podcasting. I do think, though, that the media, if you will, the legacy media, will end up coming to podcasting and then just carrying all the baggage with them. Teleprompters, producers, censorship in their own right. I just think that they lost, or that kind of media lost the control. So now podcasting was just something that existed already that people could just flock to and realize that like there's no control because you publish this episode yourself. You click the button publish, and now it's being legitimized because people don't trust the other media now. And it's a vacuum that was created that's being fulfilled by podcasting. I don't think podcasting did anything special to deserve it. It just was there. And then the people who were the conservative conspiracy theorists or whatever, they just existed in places they couldn't be censored. So then naturally that audience base went to a place where those people exist. Those people are now platformed more than ever, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then the other like these other legacy medias realize like, oh, our overhead's too high. Our viewership is too low. What do? Like, we start producing lower quality podcasts. We start firing a lot of people. We start adjusting our approach. And I don't think maybe in the next 10 years we'll see like that version's adaptation to podcasting. But who knows? Like even television isn't being consumed by anyone my age or younger. It's all just Roku TV, YouTube apps and stuff like that.
Sure. So how many people are consuming YouTube on television? It's like, whoa.
I used to hate YouTube. It's because it got better, actually. YouTube on television sucked for so long. Like it would just be buggy. It wouldn't work. Signing in and out was terrible. Like using the Roku button, 4 buttons to like sign in with your password, it's a nightmare. But now you just scan a QR code and it connects to your app on your phone, easy peasy. So I think that's partly due to the reason why YouTube TV is like, or YouTube on TV has been increasing. Also, long form content from the same source you heard it is actually doing better on televisions than phones, right? So there used to be this fear when TikTok started to get really popular that short form would trump all of other media and it would just be people staring at their phones. But there's this crave for long form, meaningful content. Like Netflix proved it. Like people will watch an entire episode of entire season of Ozark, and it's 8 hours in total content. Like what? Like I thought these were the same people that were doom scrolling every day. It's like no, they're consuming long content. It's just long content was just boring, or it wasn't formatted properly, or it wasn't captivating the audience at the time.
Or trying to create a relationship. Like it's once you get somebody into long form, they learn who you are at a deep level. Yeah. And in short form, you never get that. But short form's so consumable.
Right.
So it's the difference between like if I had a bowl of grapes here, like we grab a grape and we toss a grape and it's like super easy. That was great and enjoyable. Versus sitting down for like a 4-course meal.
Sure.
Where it's just like it's incredible. It's an amazing experience, but it's also a commitment.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? So as podcasters have taken over a lot of what mainstream audiences have been consuming, are we seeing advertisers move over to that as well? And is that going to corrupt podcasts in the same way that like newscasts that are like brought to you by Pfizer, and now I don't trust the newscast on their reporting of COVID or whatever the case may be. Right. Like, are we going to see that within the podcast space?
There's already like that happens naturally. Like don't bite the hand that feeds is something that's inherent to humanity. Like I think that's the whole idea of raising your kid, right? When your kid talks back, you're like, I provide a roof over your head. I give you food. It's like, yeah, you do owe some loyalty to that. And I think a lack of loyalty and true doing whatever the fuck you want is actually bad. Because then if you have a predictable perspective and a perspective that encourages debate, then that's what trust is built on, not just because it's on a platform. So I think if you are known as a reputable person and you are the one in charge of accepting or declining your advertisers, I would expect that you carry the same energy that you do in your show to that. And that's not necessarily spelled out. I do think that more transparency needs to happen. Like I have no problem with ads unless it's intrusive and it's super annoying. And then I'm like, okay, you're wasting my time. Like you're taking advantage of me, right? As a viewer, as a listener, as a whatever. So I think that advertisers will absolutely always try to play, but there's not enough, as much money as there is in podcast advertising, it's still a fraction or less than legacy media, because it's just like there's a lot of people at the low end who are accepting terrible deals. So like they'll advertise HelloFresh for nothing just to have the clout of having an advertiser, which is ironic. Like people will sell out early so they feel like they're having progress in podcasting and in this type of content. But you notice that the people who withhold advertiser money, or they use something like Patreon and have a paywall content, those are the people who actually generate more trust. So you're going to find that advertisers will always try to like fit in where they, where the demographics match. And they will always attempt to, if like I'm funding you for a year and then in that year you start talking about stuff that my company doesn't like, go with, then I'm going to be like, hey, yo, like there's probably a clause in the contract that says they could back out if the content's terrible or whatever. But then you should, like, as a host or a person doing that business deal, you should be like, this is my show. The people love my show because they trust me, and the moment that trust is broken, then that we have nothing left, then nobody likes the show. But I think less and less people are going to are relying on advertisers, and more people like us, like podcasters or small content creators or artists at all, are relying on Patreon, like the monthly subscriptions to get access to content. Like that's where the real money is in our industry, not advertisers. Both is like perfect. Like if Joe Rogan started a Patreon, like he would make more money than he did on the Spotify deal.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a big Spotify deal.
Yeah, like it's just insane because but he's not doing that because he knows that's why his audience, he doesn't sell out. Like he has advertisers, and yeah, he partnered with Spotify, but how did that affect us? It didn't. It affected nothing. And if anything, it gave him permission to say whatever he wanted, because now he's financially secure, and he has no other interests except for what he wants to do. And you're like, great, he's a trustworthy person. You can't say the same for legacy media, where like the host, like the person you're seeing on screen, has nothing to do with the process of it being created. Like having that very short distance between person on screen to it being delivered is actually like what builds that trust, right? Less people are trusting corporations and are trusting people more. And so Joe Rogan and Jamie, for example, those are the only two people, and maybe like a guest booker, an assistant. Those are the only three people involved in that show, and it's the most popular show in the world in podcasting. And that
I don't think just in podcasting. I think it might be the most popular show in the world.
I wouldn't doubt that analytic actually, but this shows you like that's why the trust is there. If Joe Rogan said me and my team and my corporate's interest, and I was at a board meeting the other day, it's like, all right, so there's other people here that I'm not seeing that are making choices that you aren't choosing. So I might still choose to trust you, but now it's like there's not that inherent like vibe you get from early podcasting.
Yeah, he also mentioned that Joe Rogan mentioned that when he did the Spotify deal, he was considering trying to vanish from the internet. Like he was trying to consider shutting it down, and it turned out it blew up. So he's still going.
Yeah, and that goes contrary to everything that I would say. If I said, if a podcaster came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to take my podcast off of every other platform but Spotify, I'm like, you're stupid. That's dumb. Why would you do that? Like, you don't deserve that exclusivity. Like, don't do that. Why? How much are they paying you? Oh, they're not paying you? That's dumb, right? Obviously, with Joe Rogan, that's a lot of money, but he had the ability, nor did he care, and then people came anyways.
Yeah.
And Spotify was cool because it was the only audio platform that allowed video. So I'm still bullish on Spotify for that reason. I think Apple Podcasts do it, but Apple missed the train with so many things. And then obviously YouTube is video only, but they're just now implementing a podcast section that used to be Google Podcasts, which was even worse than Apple and Spotify combined. But again, they're behind the eight ball. They're just trying to figure out how algorithms work for long-form podcasting. And there's nothing that works yet. It's all short form that's driving traffic to podcasts. Or medium form, like 15-minute, 5 to 15-minute videos that are driving to podcasts.
I mean, I would argue that the subscription model within the podcast also drives traffic. While like YouTube, if you subscribe to a channel, it really doesn't do a whole lot as far as getting you to see the next episode.
Yeah.
But if I subscribe to it on my podcast app on my phone, I'm actually probably going to listen to the next one that pops up.
Yeah, probably. And then you create like if you like a podcast long enough, then you create a time of the week, assuming they're weekly podcasts, that you listen to it. You're like, I know Monday I have a long commute. I'm going to listen to XYZ podcast because that's just the time. And they release on Sunday. Fantastic. And that's super important in podcasting because if having consistent release. It used to be like that on YouTube when subscriptions worked like it does in podcasting. It's like I release every Friday, so when you get home from school, you can watch my video, right?
That's a really good point. That did go away, and that is still important.
And yeah, so subscribe, like you can add notifications. That's why everyone's like, hey, hit the notification bell. But YouTube has actually not been delivering notifications anymore because the notification system in YouTube, it takes up a lot of server bandwidth to deliver that to every single device over the entire world. Like, so honestly, I think they're giving up on the notification system. So you just, even if you click subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then you are tuned in, you're not going to get their content, especially if you don't engage with it in your algorithm. Like, there's people I'm like on all platforms that we're following or subscribed to that we just never see. It's partly because we clicked the button and then we didn't care about it anymore.
Yeah, the like, follow, subscribe thing, even leave a comment, doesn't matter anymore. The big one now is, can you get them to watch the next episode?
Right.
But the algorithm just keeps changing. You have to keep moving with it.
Well, I think it actually got better. Like there's a lot of little things like how much time, like on a swipe up algorithm, it's like how much time do you spend? Like every action you make on a TikTok is cataloged and tracked. How long it took you to swipe between the next one, how long you stayed, if you swiped away but then came back, if you saved it, so that all this analytics means something. It's just like to a bigger kind of like decision, like it's like points. It's like adjusts whether or not this content is more for you. And then what's crazy and stuff that's happens behind the scenes is on TikTok, it's like, so there's AIs that listen and watch the TikToks, and they identify there's a woman in this TikTok. So if you like this one, the chances are of a woman being in the next TikTok is higher. Then it gets even more detailed. This woman is wearing a low cut top.
Jeez.
And then it's like, oh, this woman, you could see nipples through the low cut top. So I'm just going to start delivering you all of this content with nipples.
All the high quality nipple content
Yeah.
comes direct to
Again,
you.
it just goes back to, I always take the metaphors to the nth degree, but it could be anything. Like, let's say there's a car in the back, like a car. It's a car content. Then it's like, oh, this TikTok has a wheel in it. All right, next 3 TikToks, it's gonna start suggesting tags that you can't see that are based on that to refine what you're actually interested into. That's why you can open up TikTok. If you just swipe up like rapidly for like, let's say 5 minutes straight, you'll be in a part of TikTok you've never seen ever. And that's just because like the algorithm is just trying its best, and it's like, oh, you're not liking anything, so I'm gonna start delivering new content to you. And that's why if you're having a bad day, TikTok will exacerbate it, because if you want angry content, something to relate to. If you're having a fantastic day, you're gonna get wholesome content, because you're like, you stop and watch the stuff that like connects with you the most in that moment, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because if you want to, usually people try to use entertainment to get away from their problems, but this is just like tagging along and adding on to whatever you're going through. So if I'm like going through like I wake up at 3 a.m., I'm an entrepreneur, all my content's going to be that, because I want people like me. I want to create a tribe that sounds and looks like me, create my own echo chamber. But if I'm depressed and I'm worried all the time, then I'm going to get a bunch of, fear content that's just going to relate to that, because I'm liking it. I'm spending, even if you don't like it, comment or bookmark it, just spend a little bit more time on it. It's going to start suggesting that to me. Instagram does that. Facebook Reels do that. TikTok does it, and now Twitter's version of Reels, their X's, I guess, do that too. But X is just kind of like a clunky platform right now. It doesn't really work very well.
So the only way that technology works is with the onset of AI doing transcriptions of the videos,
Yeah.
of spoken content, and image recognition, knowing what's on screen.
Yeah.
That's the only way that works. And AI has changed the game
Oh yeah.
in so many ways. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a couple of thoughts from you on the impact that it's had, and maybe even some tools that are worth checking out, and ones
Sure.
maybe that are worth avoiding.
AI is a much debated thing. It's like something that it's inevitable. You can't avoid it. It's like the internet. It's not a fad. Although it sounds like it, it's not going away. It's only going to get deeper. It's only going to get better. It's only going to be more part of your life. So if you're trying to avoid AI, stop it, because then you're going to be the boomer we make fun of. And AI, although it comes with dangers, like a sharp knife, it also could be used as a fantastic tool. And AI now is just being exploited, right? It's creating creating a new environment that we're not used to. So a lot of people are being scammed. A lot of people are auto-generating content for views, and this is all expected. And it's the platforms like YouTube and Google and Spotify and X that have to work better to understand, like, again, it goes back to the advertisers. Does an advertiser want to advertise on a platform where all the content's fake and all the users are fake? No. Like, it brings no practical value to Coca-Cola. So it's up to the platforms to kind of build the AI, but also build safeguards to like identify it, right? So, and it's a back and forth thing. So like I have this debate a lot with my girlfriend. She's an artist maximalist, and I'm a technologist, I guess, as you can say. So when I have an idea, sometimes I'll brainstorm with ChatGPT, and she's like, I'm in a throuple with ChatGPT, and I'm like, that's not true. It's like, why do you always have to ask it so many questions? Because it's partly because it's super easy. It's way easier than Google to like have information. Also, I can ask it dumb follow-up questions that nobody has thought of, and it can kind of interpret what I'm trying to get at, which kind of helps with my communication a lot better. But then she's a filmmaker and an artist like me, but I'm on the technology side of filmmaking, like cameras, lighting, something physical aspects. But she's from the director and writing side of filmmaking, and AI is not completely destroyed. I'm using the wrong words, but like has influenced a lot of like, is this an AI script? Like, there's no passion in it. It's missing something. Like AI generated images, although it could be beautiful, it kind of lacks a sense of like, oh, there wasn't a lot of energy used to make this, so it kind of devalues it. And we're in this world where we can't identify the difference between the two, but doesn't mean that the art that is actually created is worth less. It's just seen less, right? Because now all the AI garbage that's out there, if you will be seen before this person. So being an artist is even harder with AI emulating artists. Going to tools but then it's a tool, right? Because it's a language model, which, I feel bad for all like the communication majors out there and all like the copywriters out there, because their jobs are gone completely. And I do think that was a job much like a computer, which used to be a woman in the 1940s and 50s, which a computer was a woman,
person, yes.
was a person computing, was now replaced by technology. You could say, oh my God, all these women don't have jobs anymore, right? I mean, they had a lot of other problems in the 50s, but they don't have jobs anymore. But now computers are, like, they're not stealing, like, it's now a tool. Like, people have forgotten that. So same thing with AI. Like there's going to be a lot of positions and jobs that were extremely technical that don't need to be there anymore. Like, copywriting isn't necessarily, it's mostly technical in language, but not in art. So if you're like, hey, here's a transcript, or I want you to listen to this entire show, and I want you to transcribe it for me, that's just a person laboriously typing on a keyboard everything you're saying. So having AI transcribe your podcast, is that a bad thing? No, it's fantastic. Use it. Now you are opening up to a whole new world of accessibility to people who can't hear, right? Who's to say, like, oh, like, because it's AI stole their jobs, now the deaf people can't have content themselves either. And then it goes back to, like, and then there's, like, what's another aspect of AI in podcasting? Then there's, like, the automations and stuff that, like, takes the clips from, like, the shows, which, clipping of podcasts is an extremely laborious thing. And it's oftentimes taking a full-length podcast, making it into a vertical format. You're adding captions so that someone can just read it instead of listening to it on the road. And then if you're crazy, you add some B-roll to kind of like captivate. But I've also proven throughout my studios that all ranges of quality of clips do well. It's always goes down to the quality of what's being said, what's the content, right? So you could have a clip that's just vertical, that is just me and you talking, no captions, no B-roll, no music, just us talking. And if it's an interesting engagement, then people will listen to it. Or it could be the most boring conversation, but with B-roll and explosions and captions and everything. And now now no one's watching it. You put all this effort into it, no one's watching it. So again, it goes back to make your podcast better, and then the clips will do better. But going to the AI, so now there's these platforms like Opus.pro, which was the best, kind of the most obvious response to kind of like taking this very technical, non-artistic approach to doing stuff and applying it to a very technical and unartistic part of podcast clipping, which is, hey, I record an hour-long podcast, I want 17 clips. You could pay someone to do that, right? And that person can do that, but they're not being creative. Yeah, they have to have knowledge of aesthetic, but like once you learn the playbook of what that is, then it's just a template. Now you're asking this person, much like a computer in the 1950s, this woman, to just do something repetitive. So yeah, AI can take that. I do think that, and then it's not like creating new information. It's not changing your words. It's not adjusting anything. It's just taking the raw content and then cutting it down. So I definitely do like Opus.
Do you think it's good enough?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not good
That's
enough.
my problem with it too. I'm like, they're gonna beat humans. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, I do like with my studios, even now, I've considered Opus 1,000 times. Like every single time they make an update, I'm like, is this the update? It's not. It's not the update. And partly it comes down to my unique position as a podcast studio owner servicing multiple clients. If it was just me and one person, I would use Opus all day, because then I can get Opus to have an aesthetic that I like for that person and have it repeat it. And then I can very easily go and say, oh, I like this clip, I hate this clip, I like this clip. And then cut clips on my own, right? Again, that's one client. But if each studio has 150 clients and we're all delivering content out of a small percentage, but a large percentage of that, a large amount of people of those podcasts, those clients will ask for revisions that Opus isn't capable of doing, or ask for an intentional clip, something that isn't necessarily as easy to do. So now I'm just having to take the labor. What I thought I was just exchanging for an editor, now I have Opus. I'm now having to train a non-editor to then use Opus now I'm just paying the same. I'm just duplicating the work, but in a different world. Now I'm giving money to Opus instead of Adobe or DaVinci, So again, it went back to the workflow does not fit Opus unless I somehow give the power to the client for them to do it. But again, the education level and the reason why they're coming to our studio is because they don't know anything. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to lift a finger. They just want to say, I want to show up and do a podcast and then maybe tell you the few moments that I like, and that's it. And then everything technically is done. So unless I give the power to the client to make their own clips through Opus, then I'm always going to have a human or somebody who can interpret changes for a clip in person. And yeah, it is maybe a bit more expensive, but it saves the back and forth. And if we're going back and forth with the client, when I have 150 other podcasts that need to be released that week, it doesn't sustain itself at all. So Opus is not good for me. Opus is great for individual creators. And the algorithm decides whether or not it's good or not. So I don't even see the bad clips because they don't end up hitting me.
I anticipate that Opus is eventually going to be just plugged back into where these platforms are posting them.
Right.
And then it'll get the feedback of what clips are doing well and what are doing badly.
Yeah.
And so it'll get a feedback loop where it can figure out how to improve.
Right.
But right now I feel like the quality of the clips just not there yet.
I think it's just how they're training it, because they're training it based off of the For You page and like the attributes. They don't have access to the API on that side, so they're having to just watch TikTok and have a computer interpret why are these TikToks doing well. So then Opus creates a score. This clip has a 93% score, and that's based off of their trained algorithm by looking at TikTok and seeing what's popular. Doesn't mean it's going to be popular. It doesn't mean the algorithm is actually going to push you. It's also not considering things like shadow banning, things like topics that the algorithm doesn't like, so on and so forth. So again,
it's also only recycling what has already existed, right?
Yeah.
So you can't create the next new trend when all you're doing is comparing to the existing trends.
Right. And
all you can do is fall into that.
And that's where the art comes in. Because so at our studio at Sticky Paws, we would create templates and standards, but we'd often revisit them like on a monthly basis, where we'd be like, okay, we ran this font, this type of caption style, this type of aesthetic for a month. How do we do? Then we kind of look at everything. How hard was it to create those clips? How well those clips did? Was us doing less more, or is us doing more or less? And then we reevaluate. And you can't do that with Opus. You can't really say Opus create something that hasn't been existed, right? At least an editor could be like, let me try this thing. Let me see if this works. And then let's create 2 versions of that, and then see if it publishes. Like Mr. Beast, like it's all people doing the job. Like he probably uses AI for like the note taking and transcribing and all this stuff, but he has people creating thumbnails and hundreds of thumbnails that he tests constantly, right? So like you can't get that with like an automated thing. Again, that's because you're trying to do less work. You're trying to be lazy, or more efficient, or however you tend to.
He's got some of the best editors in the world.
Yeah, well, it's because like who doesn't want to work for Mr. Beast? It's almost like Elon Musk has the best engineers in the world, because who doesn't want to work for
the biggest engineering companies?
Right.
Yeah.
So like this happens. It's like it's a feedback loop. Once you hit a certain point, then there's people who want to be involved, and there's talented people who want to just get permission. It goes back to me at my first studio. It's like I had all this knowledge from podcasting for years prior to that studio, but no one gave me the permission to do something about it. And I was like, oh wow, now I have this playground right? So X and all of Elon Musk's endeavors kind of give young people a playground to attempt and try under the guise of billion dollars from Elon. But
So you've seen live way more podcasts than most people ever have.
yeah,
I'm curious about your own personal algorithm on what makes a great host or a great guest.
yeah. That's interesting. I think being comfortable in the studio is really important. Like if you're not comfortable where you are physically, as a host or as a guest, it just people don't really vibe. Like this is also I think why like shows like Jimmy Fallon and those kind of talk shows are weird because like you're putting them on a stage, they're facing us.
Same way.
Yeah, like it just like that's not how you have conversations with people. And I at a point like that used to be the aesthetic when that was the only media out there. So you kind of expected it to have that format, desk, couch vibe. But it's not like that anymore. So people feel like it's weird now. And same thing with the news. Like someone staring at the camera just endlessly talking, like that's not natural. So like people do prefer like the kind of off-camera look and kind of them talking about something. But to answer your question a little bit more directly, it's like comfortability of the host and if the host can make their guests comfortable. Because if the guest is like in an interview scenario, like I've taken it upon myself to kind of feel relaxed here because I'm among my people and you know in this. But like I could be super nervous and just like not add anything. I could answer your question directly and stop and wait for you. And that it's you as a host that needs to break that down during the show or before the show starts. Right? You texted me, asked me to be here. I asked a few questions back. You kind of gave me the stuff, but I've done this a few times. But if I was like never been on a podcast before and I wasn't me, you would have to do a lot more work to make me feel comfortable showing up to a place with cameras and lighting and asking me a series of questions. So if it's ironically, if a podcast is just an interview, it's a bad podcast. Unless it's an interview podcast, like where like that's why people are coming to you. You interview XYZ, but like Joe Rogan's not an interview. Tucker Carlson isn't. I guess it's more interview because it comes from like news, but it feels like he allows a conversation to breathe, but that also is allowed because podcasting could be 4 hours long. A podcast could be 4 hours long. There's no tight 30 with commercial breaks, you know? So comfortability is super important. Being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable in the environment, making the guests comfortable. That's like giving them their favorite beverage, you know? Like, thank you for doing that. It made me comfortable. Then it's just like, then it's being a master or admitting you're not a master of the topic at hand, right? Sometimes when people enjoy watching a show or when shows are interesting, at least to me watching it, is when the host, when they're out of their element, they don't try to posture. They don't virtue signal. They don't go out of their way to make the guest to create an equality. To create equality because like I might know something way better than you, but if you're like, yeah, me too, and then it feels like people can read the vibes. So like the cool thing about a podcast, a video podcast, is that you could read body language, and you know they have sight now with the sound. So if you look uncomfortable, you look like you're trying to posture, you look like you're just like not a person they would want to hang out with.
I've just been kicking you under the table every time you say something I don't agree
you?
with.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that
crazy.
was me.
Oh, it's good to know.
Thought we had a dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who knew? And then with the guest, and then letting the guest say whatever the heck they want, let them dig their own hole is like the best thing you can ask for. Because sometimes they'll say something and you're like, instead of being like, oh, we don't say that here, just let them say it, cut it out later. If it's a live stream maybe and you don't want to get banned, maybe that's something else, but like just let them talk. Let them talk for as long as they want and just get it out. You know, time permitting, of course, but
I'm always shocked by how often hosts feel the need they're like, I've got a microphone, I need to talk. And it's just
Right.
like, then why did you invite the guy that's an expert at something?
Right.
Like, it's like,
Right.
shut up.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then that kind of leads to the next point is like having, again, if you're being being prepared is great. Understanding the person you're inviting, their background, their life, their whatever is super cool. Having a note card and maybe a laptop is fine too, but relying on secondary or tertiary stuff to accomplish the podcast kind of disassociates the host from the conversation, which kind of then disassociates the viewer from the podcast. So like you can have notes, but like if you're like next question, and then you look and then you ask a question, then put it down, it's like anyone could be the host, right? And you have to ask yourself like a general question is like, why do people watch my show? Is it because of the host or because of the type of guests, right? So like I bet there's like so many people that don't like Joe Rogan that watched the Donald Trump interview,
Oh,
right?
Crazy
So
amounts.
right, so like that's an example of, oh, my show is guest driven. People actually, I'm just a humbled host who's just here to facilitate the opportunity for this guest to talk, and like that's a great position to be in, right? Because now you're not like trying to be, you have a bit more of like a less ego in the conversation. You let the person speak, and then over time there's gonna be people that enjoy you, but it's probably because you get great guests or whatever. Or are you a comedy guy who doesn't have any guests? It's just you and a bud who are just going back and forth, riffing, doing improv stuff. Then you know the audience, if they're there for you two. So introducing a guest to a non-guest show is actually one of the biggest risks for a show like that, because you're kind of like relying on them, that third person, to have the same vibe. Otherwise, it's just gonna just not be right, or that person's gonna feel uncomfortable, or it's gonna be like a weird kind of like, okay, so this is a podcast with two people and then somebody else just sitting. And then in terms of that, and then I think that's it. And then consistency is super important, and being predictable, right? So podcasting, because it still exists in this archaic way of like notifications, which is great, which is if you subscribe, you'll get a notification on your phone, is having a consistent release schedule on Tuesday at whatever time. Joe Rogan can get away with whatever he does because he's Joe Rogan. Again, stop comparing yourself to Joe Rogan. As much as I bring his name up in this, I Control F the transcript of this entire podcast and type in Joe Rogan, see how many times it's listed. I'm going to say 25. So Joe Rogan,
I'm
Joe
taking
Rogan,
the
Joe Rogan,
under
Joe
on
Rogan,
that.
Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan.
Oh, no. You stacked the
30
odds.
now. You can't use him as a comparison because he kind of just does what he wants. But what people expect from a podcast is that it's being released on a regular basis, whether it's a 10-minute show released 3 times a week, a 30-minute show released twice a week, a 1-hour show released once a week, or a 1-hour show released once a month. Just hope that like people like they make the time to come around. It doesn't need to be. It just needs to be regular. It doesn't need to be weekly. Because I listen to a few podcasts that just are off the handle, and you're like, it takes them a month to organize this, and I respect that, honestly. Same thing with YouTube content. Like if a YouTube creator releases a video or a podcast once a month, I kind of expect it to be a higher quality, because like I hope he's working all of that time to make that thing happen. And you know, if that's his only income, like YouTube or podcasting, you would expect him to be building up to that moment.
And that's also a really great differentiator. Like a lot of people will just kind of clone what they like, and they're not thinking about what makes my show different than everybody else's. Because if you're trying to go out there and be Joe Rogan, which a lot of people do, it's why I shave my head, then like you're way behind. You're never going to get to the 80 million downloads he got when he got the president on.
Yeah.
Good luck. But instead, if you're like, you know what I have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And maybe I've got a little editing skills. I'm gonna pack this thing with B-roll and all whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe you have that, or maybe you've got a lot of income that you could throw at advertising, or maybe you've got connections that nobody else has, so you can bring on really cool guests.
Yeah.
But like finding that differentiator is so important, and so many people are like, I'm gonna clone what works,
Right.
rather than I'm gonna use what I have as a resource.
Yeah, definitely. You really, at the end of the day, like the product is, you know, like the phrasing where it's like if the service is free or the product's free, you're the product, or like you're what's being sold.
Yeah.
And that's true because advertisers exist. But even if it's like a podcast that exists, like you are catering to an audience, like, or a niche or a group of like a thinking, right? Yeah. Ideally, you'd want everyone, you just want to create the content you create and then the people find you. But in the beginning, like that's just not how it works. Like the algorithm on the short form will kind of do that for you. It'll find the niche. Let's say we have a sidebar about cigars and how much I love cigars. You can clip this moment and then publish it on TikTok, and it hits cigar TikTok, and it's being blown up. But then people from cigar TikTok go and watch a podcast. They're like, this is a podcast about podcasting. That's dumb. So like, anyway, so like
this is a podcast about podcasting, and it is dumb.
No, I think it's pretty intelligent.
No, I'm going with dumb.
You're asking questions. You're asking questions that others don't ask about our industry. I think a lot of people focus too much on the equipment or the business model, but you're asking questions about what makes the content work, which is why I exist. People want to create podcasting, so therefore my studios exist. I didn't create a studio and then podcasting exists after that. So like I'm constantly solving a problem or providing a service. Like a plumber exists because plumbing exists and people need plumbing. So that's how I see our studios, and how we approach like these conversations need to be done from like, what's the purpose? Like The client comes in because they want to talk to an audience, and that they need to relate to that audience. How do they do it? They come to our studio because they want to skip a few steps about technical learning and then just create the content. But then you asked what makes the content good, because the studio will not make content good. It'll definitely make it appear better if you don't know anything about the content. And if you're trying to get guests that don't want to go to your basement, it's definitely a great place to be. There's a lot of
I've got to show you the basement.
yeah, the basement. Yes.
Have you been to the basement?
Here?
Yes. You are going to get a special tour that
heck
nobody
yeah.
else has gotten.
I might lose a kidney. So like you have, like every podcast has a niche or a niche they're going for, and you have to cater to that niche at first, right? If you there's podcasts about opening Pokemon cards, right? And that's all they do. They open Pokemon cards. They have a camera up top. And that's it. And they publish their podcast. It gets 1,000 views, but it goes on the subreddits and it gets viewed and admired by that group of people. But and that's fine. You kind of have to, before going into any venture or any business venture, you have to ask yourself, what's the demographics of what you're doing, and what's the potential market cap of that. So if you're doing a very niche down show about anime, but more specifically One Piece, but the fandom of One Piece from episode 10 to 500 and nothing after that, your market cap might be 2 people, but so you have to kind of be open to broadening or restricting your kind of podcast theme or type. You can't just say I'm a comedy podcast. You have to ask yourself, what type of comedy podcast? Is it an improv comedy podcast? Is it scripted? Is it satire? And then you have to ask, where do those get posted? And then maybe it's not enough to just post on YouTube and Shorts. Maybe you got to go to the subreddits. You got to go to those places where these people, your audience, hangs out, and just quote unquote start handing out flyers to show that your podcast exists. Or if something in your niche blows up, make a podcast about that and release it ASAP. So now in that niche, people listen to you. And again, it might just be 1,000 people, but that's 1,000 people are the same people that may convert and buy your $5 Patreon a month. And then that's a lot of money, right? And you only need 1,000 people. People get enamored by the number of views or likes and think that's the only metric. That is the only metric if you're relying off of the platform's monetization. But if you take monetization in your own hands, you take your own value in your own hands, what makes your podcast valuable for your audience, and then speak to the audience like they're people, then chances are they're going to relate back to you and kind of give you that support, given it's not too oversaturated or some other crazy outlier situation.
Yeah, the using the advertising model is really one of the worst models for monetizing a podcast, which is bizarre that everyone goes, well, I'll make money off of YouTube throwing ads on there. And it's okay, so YouTube has to get a cut. The advertiser has to make their margins.
Yep.
By the time it gets to you, good luck. And it's spread across all these shows, as opposed to if you're selling your own product, or a lot of shows will have paid guests, or there's literally 40, 50 different really good models out there.
Sure.
And everyone seems to focus on the obvious one, and maybe the barrier of entry is the lowest.
Yeah.
But also the ROI, the return on investment, is nothing.
You started this podcast saying asking for those who don't have an audience, how do they get into podcasting? The answer is just build your audience. Just build it somewhere, whether it's in your church. It sounds dumb. I sound like Gary Vee now. Just build an audience, whether it's your church, your community
Buy this
center,
wine,
right? But that's truly the successful podcasts work because people already want to hear more of what you have to say. Because Twitter, it's restricted. For example, it's just words. Instagram, it's shorts. So podcasting is the logical next step for anyone with an audience that wants to give them more of you, I guess, or more of your something, right? And again, podcasting doesn't have to be this. It could be you solo, just talking about a topic, a 5-minute topic. I listened to a podcast while going to college because I was really mentally down. It was a 10-minute podcast, and all he would do is just tell you that you're you might be feeling like shit, and that's okay. But here's a few things to help you in your day. And it's a 10-minute podcast. It speaks directly to camera, or what I presume was the camera, because I didn't watch it, listen to it. But and that's a niche, and that's specific, and that was a successful podcast for that guy. But his episodes were 10 minutes long. It's like saying YouTube is a style of content. It's not. Podcasting could be a YouTube video, just listen to, right? You could there's a lot of people who put on labs and walk down the street and then go oh, there's that place. But you could choose to watch it, or you could choose to click it and put it in your pocket and listen to it. Again, if you're trying to go for an audio only market, then you kind of have to make sure there's not anything that's gonna blare at them in the middle of the night. Or if it's a sleepy podcast, like don't have an alarm clock go off in your studio.
One of my favorites is a podcast called Sleep With Me, where there's this guy named Scooter who is just the most boring human
Oh my
being on the
gosh.
planet. And I love the idea that he figured out a way to monetize.
His boring
That
personality.
and he acknowledges it. He's
That
like,
is
I'm your
crazy.
boyfriend here, and he just rambles on while you fall asleep.
That's crazy because I mean, my girlfriend. I used to sleep with like no technology in my room. Well, obviously my phone like plugged in, but like with no TV or anything. Started dating my girlfriend, and she has like, she's like over like it's over like an overstimmed kid. Like she has like her phone playing something, the TV's playing something, and she's falling asleep to like all this noise. I'm like, why don't you listen to white noise? She's like, oh no, I want words. I need cadence of words and stuff like that. She has like Seinfeld. She like sleeps to. She sleeps to Big Bang Theory, but now I sleep to that. But like I get it now, and what's so funny about that, if you're talking about content, sleep content is it's immense. Like you think it's kind of ridiculous because the audience is obviously not there. If it's for sleeping content, the audience is not paying attention. So how does that have any value to advertisers? And here's the thing about YouTube that's so crazy is that you get paid more per view if your viewer is on premium. So in the sleep world, because people who use YouTube to sleep, they don't want ads. So they'll pay for YouTube Premium and then put on this 4-hour-long YouTube video to go to sleep to, and then it has 100% watch time because the audience isn't paying attention. And because YouTube knows that they're paying attention the whole time, and the next video will be recommended, they get more money. So there's actually more money in YouTube creating content that nobody watches.
Yep.
That
They did the same thing on Spotify. Some band was mad at Spotify for their cutoffs, so they made a gigantically long, like 20-hour track that was all silent.
yeah.
So as the album got to an end, it just stopped, but
Yeah.
it was playing the entire time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like and the algorithms know this because around like on my TV, this is where we watch these YouTube videos. It like around like 8 p.m. it'll start to suggest in the algorithm sleep content.
Oh,
Like
really?
it knows by time like when that Mara account would prefer that type of content. And then there's people who create sleepy versions of everything. Like there's the boring podcast, there's like the white noise podcast, but then there's people playing Minecraft but with like sounds soft, right? And they're like whispering like ASMR, and my girlfriend loves that content, and that does really well. And it might be passion for the person, but again, like who knows? Like content is just like we don't realize like content isn't purely just talking at somebody or creating a video. It's this, how does this content serve a person in their daily life? Like an ad can inform them, an infomercial can inform them. Content can be a blog, it could also be an ad, but it can also inform people. Like the moment you kind of disassociate content from this like kind of weird kind of thing you're chasing as like an influencer, and you're no longer an influencer but you're creating content, then it kind of like opens you up to like, oh wow, I can really do anything I want. And then detaching yourself from like the normal markers of success, which is like 1 million views, like trying to be Mr. Beast. Like it's okay not being Mr. Beast. There's enough food for the rest of us, you know? And if you do have that drive to be Mr. Beast, you're probably listening to this going like, fuck you, and I'm going to do what I want. And you may succeed. But most of us are not on that level. And most of my clients are not on that level. But, you know, we provide the tools and like the education, and kind of like we go over everything that kind of we gone over and try to ease them in while not scaring them.
You provide the education. I know you do consulting and everything, but do you have like a course or anything like that?
Me personally, I wish I had enough
Time to pull.
time to create a course. Our goal, we're starting a new studio here in Vegas. It's gonna be much bigger. We're pretty much taking everything we learned about this podcast studio model and why people like it. Sticky Paws was created to serve John, my business partner, and what his goal is, and it kind of evolved into the studio. Now we're taking what we learned from the studio and why people enjoyed Sticky Paws as opposed to our competitors. And there's a lot of little things that kind of like add to the success of what we did that wasn't really had nothing to do with podcasting.
Can you give me an example?
Yes, I would love to give you an example. All of our secrets.
Well, just so that it makes sense.
No,
like,
yeah,
little things. What do you mean?
I'm trying to be ambiguous, but not say exactly. But like things like having a green room is really important, right? So it's something when somebody walks in, and then they're waiting to be on a show, having somewhere for them to sit is pretty good. It's pretty comfortable, right? It's like a waiting room to a doctor's office. Imagine if there was no waiting room and you had to just stand outside, or you had to arrive right on time. It just wouldn't work.
It was a big problem here. Like, you remember where our old studio was? There was no place for anybody to sit down. That's why this side opened up, is so that we had that green room.
So you guys have learned that through either experience or someone told you or whatever. But it's like an
We've
obvious
been reading
evolution.
your journal.
Yeah, I'm reading my. Oh wow, you have access to that too. Interesting.
Yeah.
So and then things like having refreshments on board. It's like hospitality stuff that like you wouldn't invest money into if you're running a slim podcast studio operation, but that is paramount to succeed in this world. And it's all the little things that have nothing to do with like the studio, even the studio itself, like having a clean studio that appears to what the client thinks a podcast studio should look like is important. Like how iPhone took a new approach to phone technology and created their own aesthetic and this premium aspect to it. Like the functionality of it, dialing someone and going and talking to someone across the world is the same. Text messages are virtually the same. But what makes this product? And that's what we're working on at our studios is like everything. It's like if a cable is seen, if there's something on the wall, if like what people like showing up to Sticky Paws, for example, because our staff was there all the time. When you walk in, even unannounced, as annoying as it is that some of our clients would do that, they would come unannounced because they knew they could just walk into the back room, take a seat, and be like, "What's up, guys?" And we'd be all busy. But they love that because all of our clients want to be content creators, and they see us creating content, even though it's for clients. They're like, "These are the guys doing the thing." So having our staff accessible to our clients is important. So having where you might want to put them behind a door or hire remote editors or have remote producers or have nobody in the studio at all, it's actually the opposite. If you want clients to stick around, you want to create a hub, a community, a place where the producer of that show can actually see the person of that show, be in the environment where podcasting is happening all the time, where it's like, "Hey, Travis, my client, Jeremiah has a question. My client has a question about XYZ." And I'm like, "Can I give him my 2 cents?" And then I walk away. Like, you now have this like incubation area that is beyond podcasting, that is beyond the studio, that is almost as essential to making sure that that credit card gets charged into the next month, because they might go to another studio, which might be cheaper. It might have better cameras. It might be, more streamlined. They might have more time available on the calendar, but they walk in, nobody's there. It's just the engineer. They're like, "Hello, is anyone here?" It's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So like, I'm missing something. There's something that I'm not. Now they have to go home and hype themselves up. A lot of times our clients would come in up to an hour early just to get the vibe going. They'll go in the fridge, crack a Coke, take some, we'd have some alcohol. They would mix it up, take a drink, chat with us for a few minutes. If we were really busy, we'd be like, "Please leave us alone." But then they would just get ready. So when their guest shows up and they take ownership of the studio, they're like, "Hey, welcome to my studio." It's Sticky Paws, but they're like, "Welcome to my studio. Studio A, this is Travis's staff." I shake hands. I'm like, "Nice to meet you." I move on to whatever I got to do. They bring him in the room. They're introducing it as if they own it, right? This is their staff. This is their infrastructure. And like a lot of studios struggle to do that because, one, having a whole staff is hard, and creating a vibe and being in a place 24/7 is hard. And unless you have 150 episodes, or let's say 80 shows that we were producing at Sticky Paws, like you really don't need to be in a studio that long. But it helps because we created our own content, like this podcast. Like otherwise, this room would be empty if it wasn't. I guess it would be empty if you weren't doing a podcast.
There'd be a guy doing a lie detector test in here.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. Is that why you had me put on this the EKG?
Yeah,
okay.
yep.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. How much of this is a lie?
So if I were to reach across the table, grab your phone, open up the podcast app, what podcast would I see you consuming the most?
Joe Rogan.
What else?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, but then a lot of my podcasts that I liked stopped podcasting, or their content just got like extremely repetitive because they lost something. Like it became a job, or like it's just like I wasn't into the people. Like I no longer related. I've grown a lot since 2020. Like it's 2025 now. I've changed. It's amazing. I'm like only 5 years, but I look back and I look nothing, act nothing like I did 5 years ago. So all these people I used to listen to and care about their opinions, they just don't scratch that itch anymore. And ironically, I listen less and less to music and podcasts. I just listen to nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it'll be like rain noises. Like
how's that?
My most played podcast is actually a playlist of distant train noises and rain sounds. It's under, like, above Joe Rogan is that, and then Joe Rogan is that. And I only listen to Joe Rogan because I think this last political election cycle, I think I was red pilled.
It was a pretty wild time.
Yeah, just like it's in a like it's I don't know. It's just interesting. So I listen to him because like he always has crazy people on, and I know it's gonna be crazy. Or the someone if you're somebody who wants to be on Joe Rogan, whether or not they paid to be on it, or they're gonna bring some crazy stuff to the table, and that's really cool. I love learning. A lot of like my YouTube algorithm is like science videos, even if it's passively. Like I'm not really paying attention, but I like that high intellectual debate or conversation about stuff. And I love challenging ideas personally. My girlfriend hates it. Again, it goes back to me and her in a throuple with ChatGPT. But yeah, it's just Joe Rogan at this point. But let's say a couple of years ago while I was in like college, it was definitely cinematography podcasts.
Okay.
Like podcasts that cinematography is primarily visual. But I learned most of my fundamentals of cinematography through an audio podcast. Him describing the setups and lighting scenarios, and him talking about that. And the one thing I do like about podcasts is that if you're having negative thoughts in your head, putting someone talking to you positive thoughts or thoughts that you ought to be thinking, right? Whether let's say you're a wannabe real estate agent, listening to people talk about real estate, like on a podcast. Not talking at you, but just talking about it. It almost feels like you're part of you're just in like a group. And so now you're passively learning, small facts or just kind of getting in that headspace. So now you're no longer thinking about that I feel overweight and I'm underappreciated or whatever. So if I'm feeling down, sometimes I'll listen to a one-off podcast about that. But
Where can people find you?
you can find me on Instagram at Travis Flesher. You can find me on X at Travis Flesher. You can find me on my website, travisflesher.com. You can find me anywhere that has a username, and it's probably going to be Travis Flesher, which is probably not a good thing for people to know, but you can just look it up. And if you're curious, you could reach out to me on my website about like studio stuff. Like I love giving information away for free. Obviously, if you want my time, that's different. You got to pay for that. But other than that, just hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, and I'd love to chat.
Thank you so much.
Of course.